Hey there, welcome to Brad Arrows. Tonight, we've got hours of chilling horror stories combined with soothing rain sounds to help you relax and sleep. Before you drift off, leave a comment below and let us know where you're listening from and what time it is. If these stories give you chills, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Get cozy and let the fear take over. Marcus Reynolds jolted awake at 3 in the morning, frantically scratching his forearm. His wife Olivia stirred beside him, her face creasing with worry in the dim light of their bedroom. "Those marks again," she whispered, reaching for the lamp. For 3 weeks straight, mysterious welts had appeared on Marcus's skin, angry red clusters that defied every treatment they tried. The local pest control specialist had found nothing, yet each morning brought fresh marks and increasing discomfort. One Saturday night, as they curled on the couch watching their favorite classic movie, Olivia's fingers absently combed through Marcus's hair. Suddenly she froze. Her hand trembled as she leaned closer, brushing his dark hair aside. "Oh God, no!" she screamed, jerking away in horror. What she discovered beneath his hairline wasn't bug bites at all, but something that would threaten everything they'd built together and make their worst nightmares seem like pleasant dreams. Riverside had been a thriving industrial town until the steel factory shut down 2 years ago. Now empty storefronts lined Main Street, and the once bustling downtown sat eerily quiet most days. This economic collapse had created a homeless crisis that the small community was ill-equipped to handle. Marcus Reynolds, a 35-year-old Army veteran with warm brown eyes and prematurely graying temples, couldn't ignore the growing encampments. 6 months ago, he'd converted an abandoned warehouse near the river into a modest shelter. At first, locals had protested. Nobody wanted those people in their neighborhood. But Marcus persisted with the quiet determination that had carried him through 3 military tours. "Someone has to care," he often said, the 2-inch scar on his forearm a reminder of shrapnel from his final deployment. His motivation ran deeper than civic duty. Daniel, his older brother, had spiraled into homelessness and addiction after returning from combat. By the time Marcus found him, pneumonia had already taken hold. The hospital admission came too late. Olivia Reynolds, a registered nurse at Riverside General, initially opposed her husband's shelter project. "You can't save everyone, Marcus," she'd argued. Yet watching his dedication gradually softened her heart. Now she volunteered weekends, providing basic medical care to residents. At 33, with honey blonde hair always pulled back practically, and steady hands that never trembled during emergencies, Olivia was known throughout Riverside for her no-nonsense competence. Among the shelter's 23 residents, 8-year-old Emma Parker had become Marcus's shadow. She and her mother had arrived 3 months ago with nothing but a duffel bag and bruises that told their story without words. Thomas Cooper, a 70-year-old Vietnam veteran who'd been living in his car before the shelter opened, served as Marcus's unofficial assistant, keeping order with grandfatherly authority. The old warehouse wasn't much cots separated by hanging sheets, a communal kitchen, 2 shower stalls. But Marcus had created something precious, a place where dignity survived despite circumstances. Every morning he'd stand in the doorway watching residents head out to job interviews or addiction meetings, hoping today might be their turning point, just as Daniel never had. The first mark appeared on a Tuesday morning in early October. Marcus noticed it while showering, a small angry welt on his forearm that itched incessantly. He thought nothing of it, dismissing it as a mosquito bite despite the cooling weather. By Thursday, 3 more had appeared on his neck. When Olivia spotted them at dinner, her nursing instincts immediately kicked in. "Let me see those," she said, pushing aside his collar to examine the marks. Her brow furrowed with professional concern. "These look like insect bites, clustered pattern, raised welts." She ran her finger gently over one, noting how Marcus winced. "Have you changed laundry detergent? Or could it be something at the shelter?" Marcus shrugged. "Nothing's changed, but the shelter did take in some donations last week, second-hand coats and blankets for winter." He scratched absently at his neck. "Think it could be from there?" Olivia's eyes widened. "Bed bugs," she said firmly. "Has to be. They're notoriously difficult to spot and easy to transport on clothing and furniture." She was already reaching for her phone, scrolling through her contacts. "My patient Rachel works for that pest control company on Maple. I'm calling her first thing tomorrow." That weekend became a flurry of activity. They stripped every bed, washed all fabrics in scalding water, and vacuumed each corner of their modest 2-bedroom home. Rachel arrived Saturday morning with her team, inspecting mattress seams and furniture crevices with practiced efficiency. "I don't see any evidence of an infestation," she admitted after 2 hours of thorough examination. "No casings, no droppings, no bugs. But they're tricky little devils. Let's treat anyway as a precaution." The chemical smell lingered for days, burning Marcus's nostrils as he tried to sleep. Yet by Wednesday, 5 new marks had appeared across his shoulders. "We need to check the shelter," Olivia insisted over breakfast, watching her husband scratch until small beads of blood appeared on his skin. "If they're not here, they must be there." The inspection of River Valley Haven proved even more disruptive. Residents had to temporarily relocate to the community center, while Rachel's team examined every cot, every donated piece of furniture. The mood was tense. Many residents had already faced stigma in town, and rumors of a bed bug infestation wouldn't help. "You doing okay, Commander?" Thomas asked, using the nickname he'd given Marcus despite his having been a medic, not an officer. The older veteran stood beside him as they watched the inspection crew work. "I'm fine, just frustrated," Marcus replied, unconsciously scratching a new cluster of marks on his wrist. Little Emma approached, tugging at Marcus's hand. "Mr. Marcus, are the bugs going to make us leave forever?" Fear made her voice smaller than usual. Marcus knelt to her level. "Not a chance, sweetheart. We're just making sure everybody stays healthy." That's all. Their inspection yielded nothing conclusive. Rachel recommended preventative treatment anyway, an expensive but necessary precaution. The shelter's modest emergency fund took a significant hit. 2 weeks later, despite all treatments, the marks continued appearing, now exclusively on Marcus. Each morning revealed new clusters, increasingly inflamed and painful. Olivia began photographing them, tracking their pattern and progression with clinical precision. "It doesn't make sense," she said one night, comparing photos from different days. "If it's bed bugs, I should have bites too. We sleep in the same bed." Her voice held the frustration of a medical professional confronting a puzzle she couldn't solve. And why aren't any shelter residents affected? Marcus winced as he applied calamine lotion to a particularly angry cluster on his neck. Maybe I'm just extra tasty, he joked weakly. Olivia didn't smile. This isn't funny, Marcus. Something's wrong. She took the lotion from him, gently applying it to spots he couldn't reach. I think you should see Dr. Harrison for bug bites. He'll think we're crazy. For an unexplained skin reaction that's getting worse despite treatment, she countered. Please. For me, Marcus agreed reluctantly, but the appointment would have to wait. The shelter was facing a more immediate crisis. The health department had received anonymous complaints about unsanitary conditions and was threatening inspection. If they found any reason to shut down operations, 23 people would be back on the streets as winter approached. Despite his increasingly uncomfortable condition, Marcus threw himself into preparing for the inspection. He worked late into each night, scrubbing floors, organizing donated supplies, updating resident records, all while fighting the constant maddening itch that disrupted his sleep and concentration. You're pushing too hard, Olivia warned, finding him asleep at the kitchen table one morning, shelter paperwork scattered around him. She placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, noticing with alarm how he flinched at her touch. Pulling back his collar, she gasped at the angry constellation of welts now spreading across his upper back. But Marcus merely straightened his papers and reached for his coffee. The people at the shelter have nowhere else to go, he said simply. I can handle a few bug bites. Saturday night was sacred for the Reynolds. No matter what chaos the week brought, they preserved this ritual homemade popcorn, an old movie, and 2 hours of uninterrupted togetherness. This tradition had sustained their marriage through deployments, night shifts, and now the all-consuming shelter project. You picked last week, Olivia reminded Marcus, scrolling through their movie collection. So tonight we're watching To Catch a Thief, and I don't want to hear any complaints about Grace Kelly. Marcus managed a tired smile. No complaints here. He settled onto their worn leather couch, grateful for the momentary respite. The health department inspection had gone reasonably well, though they'd left a list of recommended improvements that would stretch their already thin budget. Halfway through the film, Marcus's head rested in Olivia's lap, his eyes heavy with the fatigue that seemed to be his constant companion lately. Olivia absently stroked his hair, her attention divided between Grace Kelly's French Riviera adventure and concern for her husband. Her fingers traced gentle patterns across his scalp, an unconscious gesture of comfort she'd performed countless times before. Then her hand froze. She leaned closer, carefully parting his dark hair. Hold still for a second, she whispered, her nurse's instincts suddenly on high alert. What is it? Marcus murmured, half asleep. Olivia didn't answer. Instead, she reached for her phone, switching on its flashlight. What she saw made her blood run cold. A circular lesion, nearly 2 centimeters in diameter, with raised, inflamed edges. Unlike the other marks, this wasn't just a surface irritation. This was something penetrating the skin, creating what appeared to be a small, perfect hole. Oh God, no, she screamed, jerking back involuntarily. Marcus bolted upright, fully awake now. Liv, what's wrong? We're going to the hospital. Now her voice brooked no argument. This isn't bug bites, Marcus. This is something else entirely. The emergency room at Riverside General was mercifully quiet that Saturday night. Dr. Harrison, a silver-haired physician who delivered half the town's children, examined Marcus's scalp with grave concentration. "How long have you had these other lesions?" he asked, methodically photographing the various sites. "About 3 weeks," Olivia answered for him. "We thought they were bed bug bites, doctor." Harrison's expression remained professionally neutral, but his eyes betrayed concern. "And this larger wound on your scalp, any idea when this appeared?" Marcus shook his head carefully. "I had no idea it was there until Liv found it tonight." The doctor ordered a battery of tests: blood work, skin scrapings, even a small biopsy of the wound edge. Each procedure increased Olivia's anxiety. This was her hospital, her professional domain. Yet she felt utterly helpless watching her husband become a patient. 3 hours later, Dr. Harrison returned with results. He closed the examination room door with deliberate care. Never a good sign. "It's not bed bugs," he confirmed. "Marcus, you have a condition called pyoderma gangrenosum. It's a rare inflammatory disorder that causes tissue to become necrotic, essentially to break down and die. These wounds will continue to develop and worsen without treatment." Olivia gripped Marcus's hand. "What causes it? That's the complicated part. It's often associated with underlying autoimmune disorders, sometimes triggered by physical trauma or exposure to certain substances." He paused. "Marcus, have you been exposed to any unusual chemicals recently? Through your military service, perhaps?" A shadow crossed Marcus's face. "I was a medic, not in chemical warfare." "Of course, doctor." Harrison nodded. "Well, we need to begin aggressive treatment. Immediately: corticosteroids, immunosuppressants, specialized wound care. The condition is serious but manageable with proper intervention." He hesitated before adding, "There's one more concern. Some patients experience neurological symptoms, memory issues, confusion, mood changes. Have you noticed anything like this?" Olivia's head snapped up. "He forgot Thomas's birthday last week. Thomas mentioned it to me because Marcus had been planning a small celebration for days, then showed up empty-handed, claiming he never discussed it." "I've been tired," Marcus protested. "Running the shelter, dealing with these bites, wounds, whatever they are. Anyone would be forgetful, doctor." Harrison's expression remained grave. "We should monitor for cognitive changes as part of your treatment plan. I'd like to schedule a neurological evaluation." The drive home was heavy with silence. Olivia's knuckles were white on the steering wheel, her mind racing through medical literature, searching for anything she might know about this rare condition. "I can handle this," Marcus finally said, staring out the passenger window at the darkened storefronts of Main Street. "The treatment, the shelter, all of it." Olivia pulled the car over abruptly, tires crunching on gravel. "This isn't about what you can handle, Marcus. This is serious, doctor." Harrison didn't say it, but I know that condition can be life-threatening if not treated properly. Her professional composure cracked, tears spilling down her cheeks. "And what about these memory issues?" What if she couldn't finish the thought? "I'm not going to forget you, Liv," Marcus said softly, reaching for her hand. Not you, not the shelter, not any of it. Monday morning brought another blow. William Peterson from the county health department arrived at the shelter unannounced, clipboard in hand. We've received information about a potentially serious medical condition that may pose risks to shelter residents, he stated, his bureaucratic tone at odds with the human suffering surrounding him. Marcus's stomach twisted. Who told you about my condition? Peterson adjusted his glasses. That's not relevant. What matters is containment and prevention. We need to determine if this facility can safely remain open while we investigate whether your condition presents a public health concern. Thomas stepped forward, his weathered face indignant. You want to shut us down because Marcus is sick. Where are we supposed to go? Little Emma clung to her mother's leg, wide-eyed and frightened. No decision has been made yet, Peterson clarified. But we need to consider all possibilities. In the meantime, I'll need to interview residents about any symptoms they may have experienced. As Peterson moved through the shelter, Marcus retreated to his small office, a converted supply closet. His head throbbed, not just from the lesions but from mounting pressure. The shelter, his health, Olivia's worry. It was all converging into an inescapable crisis. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Olivia stood in the doorway, her face drawn. Dr. Harrison called, she said. Your blood work shows some concerning patterns. He wants to adjust your treatment plan immediately. She paused, clearly weighing her words. He mentioned your condition may be connected to chemical exposure. He's asked about your deployment records. Marcus turned away, unable to meet her questioning gaze. Some truths were better left buried, like the classified operation he'd participated in during his second tour. But how long could he keep that secret when his body was betraying him, wound by mysterious wound? The treatment regimen Dr. Harrison prescribed was aggressive. Each morning and evening, Olivia carefully cleaned Marcus's wounds, applying specialized ointments and fresh dressings. The corticosteroid pills made him jittery, while the immunosuppressants left him fatigued and vulnerable to every passing cold. Still, he insisted on maintaining his normal schedule at the shelter, though Olivia now accompanied him most days, medical kit in hand. You need to rest, she urged one morning, watching him struggle to button his flannel shirt, his fingers clumsy with inflammation. Let Thomas handle things today. I'm fine, Marcus insisted, though the dark circles under his eyes suggested otherwise. Besides, Peterson is coming back for a follow-up inspection. I need to be there. At the shelter, Emma immediately sought out Marcus, proudly displaying a colorful drawing. Look what I made for you, mister. Marcus, it's you and me and Mommy and Thomas and all the angels watching over us. Marcus knelt to examine her artwork, wincing slightly as the movement pulled at his bandages. That's beautiful, Emma. Who are all these people with wings? The angels, silly. They watch over us when we sleep. That's what my mommy says. She pointed to a particularly large figure. This one watches over you special. He looks just like you, but older. Olivia noticed Marcus's face pale slightly. Thank you, Emma, he said softly, carefully rolling up the drawing. I'll keep this on my desk. Later, when Emma was occupied with her mother, Olivia approached Marcus. You okay? You seemed upset by her picture. Marcus hesitated. The angel she drew. It looked like Daniel, my brother. He rubbed his temple where a headache was building. Probably just a coincidence. Olivia wasn't convinced, but she let it drop as Peterson arrived, clipboard already in hand. The inspection proceeded with mechanical efficiency. Peterson documenting every detail while maintaining careful distance from Marcus. "We've reviewed your medical reports, Mr. Reynolds," Peterson said when they reached Marcus's office. "While your condition isn't technically communicable, there are concerns about shared facilities and potential contamination vectors." "You mean you're still looking for an excuse to shut us down?" Marcus translated bluntly. Peterson sighed. "I'm just doing my job. We have regulations designed to protect vulnerable populations. For now, you can remain open, but with additional requirements." He handed over a multi-page document. Daily disinfection protocols, separate bathroom facilities for you, weekly professional cleaning service, all documented and verified. After Peterson left, Marcus slumped in his chair, scanning the impossible list of requirements. "This will bankrupt us in a month." Olivia squeezed his shoulder. "We'll figure it out." "Maybe fundraising or already tried," Marcus interrupted, unusual bitterness in his voice. "The town council blocked our application for community development funds. Mayor Turner made sure of that. He's wanted this place closed since day one." That evening, while Marcus dozed on the couch, Olivia sorted through a pile of mail that had accumulated during their crisis. Among the bills and medical correspondence, she found an appointment reminder card from Dr. Harrison's office, dated 3 weeks before they discovered the scalp lesion. Olivia stared at the card, confusion giving way to suspicion. Why would Marcus have an appointment with Dr. Harrison before they knew about his condition? She moved to Marcus's desk, hesitating only briefly before opening his calendar. There it was, an appointment marked 6 weeks ago, then another 2 weeks later, both with Dr. Harrison. Her nurse's brain quickly pieced together the implications. Marcus had been seeing the doctor well before their emergency room visit. He had known something was wrong and had hidden it from her. When Marcus woke, Olivia was sitting across from him, the appointment card between them on the coffee table. "Want to explain this?" Her voice was carefully neutral. Marcus glanced at the card, resignation crossing his features. "I was going to tell you when. After you collapsed. After it was too late." Olivia struggled to keep her voice steady. "How long have you known?" Marcus sat up, rubbing his face. "I noticed the first lesion about 2 months ago, on my back where I couldn't reach it easily. It was small then. I thought it was just a scratch until another appeared." 2 months, Olivia repeated, the betrayal sharp in her voice. "And you've been seeing Dr. Harrison this whole time?" "Not exactly. I went once when the second lesion appeared. He wasn't sure what it was, took some samples. By the time results came back suggesting pyoderma, the bed bug theory was already in play, and I hoped he was wrong." Marcus reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "I didn't want to worry you until I knew for sure. So you lied for weeks while I turned our house upside down looking for non-existent bed bugs." The hurt in her voice was palpable. "I'm sorry, Liv. I just couldn't handle one more crisis. The shelter, the town council opposition, and then this diagnosis. I needed time to process it." Olivia stood, needing physical distance. What else aren't you telling me? Dr. Harrison mentioned chemical exposure. Is there something from your service that could explain this? A flash of something fear. Guilt crossed Marcus's face before he shook his head. Nothing relevant. Just standard field conditions. Occasional exposure to burn pits. Nothing unusual. Olivia wasn't convinced, but she recognized the wall he'd put up. The same one he'd erected after returning from his final tour when nightmares plagued him for months. I'm going to bed, she said finally. We have your neurological evaluation tomorrow. Don't forget. The pointed reminder hung between them, heavy with implication. The next morning brought unexpected complications. As they prepared to leave for the hospital, Thomas arrived at their doorstep, tension evident in his normally composed demeanor. Sorry to bother you at home, but we've got a situation, he said, declining Olivia's offer to come inside. Emma's brother just arrived at the shelter. I didn't know Emma had a brother, Olivia said, surprised. Thomas nodded grimly. None of us did. Apparently, he's been living with his grandmother, but she passed last week. He's just a kid, maybe 12, but Marcus. He hesitated, lowering his voice. He's got marks on his arms similar to yours. Marcus and Olivia exchanged alarmed glances. We'll be right there, Marcus said, already reaching for his keys. Your appointment, Olivia began. Can wait, Marcus finished firmly. This can't. At the shelter, they found Emma's mother sitting on her cot, arms wrapped protectively around a thin boy with Emma's same wide brown eyes. Emma hovered nearby, unusually quiet. This is Noah, their mother said, her voice thick with emotion. My son. I had to leave him with my mother when I fled. She didn't finish, but the implication was clear. Noah extended his arm without prompting, showing several small circular lesions similar to Marcus's earlier ones. They don't hurt much, he said with practiced stoicism beyond his years. Grandma said they were just spider bites. Olivia knelt to examine the marks, her professional demeanor masking her concern. How long have you had these, Noah? A few weeks, I think. Before Grandma got sick. As Olivia gently questioned Noah, Marcus pulled the mother aside. Why didn't you tell us about him? Her eyes filled with tears. His father had custody. I wasn't even supposed to contact him, but my mother secretly kept me updated. When she got sick, she shook her head. Noah ran away, made it all the way here on buses using money my mother gave him. I only found out when he showed up last night. He needs medical attention, Marcus said. These marks, they're similar to what I have, and it's not something to ignore. Fear flashed across her face. If I take him to a hospital, they'll ask questions. His father might find us. I know someone who can help discreetly, Olivia interjected, having overheard. A pediatrician colleague who volunteers at the free clinic. Let me call her. As Olivia made the call, Marcus's phone rang Dr. Harrison, wondering why they'd missed the appointment. Something came up, Marcus explained, stepping outside for privacy. A situation at the shelter. Marcus, these evaluations are critical, Doctor. Harrison's concern was evident even through the phone. Your last blood work showed progression. We need to monitor neurological function before what exactly? Marcus interrupted, suddenly impatient with half-truths. You've been hinting at something serious. I need to know what we're dealing with. A pause. Come in this afternoon. Bring Olivia. We should discuss this in person. After arranging for Noah to see Olivia's colleague, they made their way to Dr. Harrison's office. The doctor's normally composed features were grave as he reviewed charts and images on his computer screen. The lesions are progressing despite treatment, he began without preamble. More concerning are these blood markers suggesting neuroinflammation. He turned the screen, showing incomprehensible medical data. Marcus, I've consulted with several specialists about your case. The pattern is unusual, but not unprecedented. Olivia tensed. Meaning I've seen similar presentations in veterans from certain operational areas. There were documented cases after operation, Desert Storm soldiers exposed to particular chemical compounds developed inflammatory conditions years later. He looked directly at Marcus. Your military records indicate you were stationed in regions where such exposures were possible. Marcus's expression remained carefully neutral. Lots of soldiers served there. Doesn't mean we were all exposed to something. Doctor. Harrison removed his glasses, suddenly looking older. Marcus, I can only help you if you're honest with me. Your condition is accelerating. The neurological symptoms could become permanent memory loss, cognitive impairment, personality changes. But treatment can be tailored if we know the specific compounds involved. The silence stretched, heavy with unspoken truths. Finally, Olivia reached for Marcus's hand. Whatever it is, we'll face it together. Something broke in Marcus then, a dam holding back years of carefully contained memories. There was an operation, he began hesitantly. Classified. We were providing medical support for a special forces unit, clearing suspected chemical weapons sites. One facility had been partially destroyed by local insurgents. We were exposed during evacuation of the injured. Olivia's hand tightened on his. And you never reported this. We did. There were tests, monitoring for acute effects. Nothing significant showed up, so they closed the file. Marcus's expression hardened. 2 years later, when Daniel started developing strange symptoms, I tried to reopen the investigation. Nobody was interested in connecting his homelessness, his mental health issues to potential chemical exposure. Doctor. Harrison leaned forward. Daniel, your brother, he had similar lesions. Marcus nodded slowly. Near the end. By then, he was living under a bridge. The ER doctors assumed it was just typical homeless health issues. Poor hygiene, untreated wounds. No one looked deeper. The implications hung heavy in the room. If Daniel had suffered from the same condition, undiagnosed and untreated. This changes our approach, Doctor. Harrison said finally. I'll consult with specialists in veteran chemical exposure cases. There are experimental protocols that might help. He turned to Olivia. And the boy at the shelter, Noah. His case might provide additional insights. Was his father a veteran as well? When they called Noah's mother, she confirmed this. His father had served in the same region as Marcus, though in a different unit. The next day brought Riverside's monthly town council meeting. Typically a mundane affair, dealing with zoning permits and local ordinances. Tonight, the community center was packed. Mayor Turner's proposal to revoke the shelter's operating permit had drawn unprecedented attendance. Marcus sat rigid in the front row, a bandage visible at his collar. Olivia beside him with a folder of meticulously prepared documentation. Behind them sat shelter residents, Thomas in his worn Veterans Affairs cap, Noah's mother holding his hand, Emma clutching her latest drawing. Mayor Turner, a man with political aspirations beyond their small town, called the meeting to order. Item first on our agenda: the proposed revocation of operating permit for River Valley Haven due to public health concerns and zoning violations. Peterson from the health department presented his findings clinically, without explicit recommendation for closure, yet painting a picture of potential risks. After he finished, Mayor Turner opened the floor for public comment. A succession of property owners near the shelter voiced complaints about decreased values and perceived safety issues, and local business owners expressed concerns about downtown image as they tried to revitalize Main Street. When it was Marcus's turn to speak, he moved slowly to the podium, the effort visible. 3 years ago, I returned to Riverside after my military service, while my brother Daniel lived and died on the streets of a bigger city because no one would help him. His voice, though quiet, carried through the hushed room. This shelter exists because I promised him it wouldn't happen here, not in our hometown, not to our neighbors. He continued steadily, addressing each complaint with facts and figures, crime statistics showing no increase near the shelter, property values affected more by the factory closure than any social service facility, documented benefits to local businesses from shelter staff purchases. As for health concerns, he concluded, my condition is being treated and monitored. It poses no risk to residents or the community. But closing this shelter, sending 26 people, including children, back to the streets as winter approaches, that poses a very real health risk indeed. Olivia followed with medical documentation and professional testimony. Thomas spoke eloquently about the dignity the shelter had restored to his life. Noah's mother described how the shelter had saved her children from an abusive home. Then little Emma approached the microphone, standing on tiptoes. Mr. Mayor, I drew you a picture. She held up her artwork showing stick figures outside what appeared to be the shelter. This is my family now. If you close, Mr. Marcus's house, where will my angels find us? The room fell silent. Mayor Turner cleared his throat, visibly uncomfortable. Thank you all for your passionate input. The council will now deliberate and vote. As council members conferred in hushed tones, tension filled the room. Olivia reached for Marcus's hand, noticing with alarm how hot his skin felt. You're burning up, she whispered. We should get you home. Not until the vote, he insisted, though sweat now beaded on his forehead. Mayor Turner approached the microphone again. After consideration of all testimony, the council will vote on the proposed revocation. All in favor. Suddenly Marcus stood, swaying slightly. There's something else you should know, he interrupted, his voice strained. The condition affecting me and young Noah. It's connected to our military service. Chemical exposure during deployment. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I've spent weeks hiding this truth, ashamed and afraid. But there's no more time for silence. He looked directly at the mayor. The same country we served is failing to acknowledge or treat what happened to us. Will our hometown do the same? Before anyone could respond, Marcus's legs buckled. The last thing he heard was Olivia's panicked voice, calling his name as darkness closed in around him. The fluorescent lights of Riverside General's intensive care unit cast harsh shadows across Olivia's exhausted face as she maintained her vigil at Marcus's bedside. 36 hours had passed since his collapse at the town council meeting. 36 hours of tests, consultations, and the rhythmic beeping of monitors that now regulated her sense of time more precisely than any clock. Dr. Harrison entered, accompanied by Dr. Morrison, a specialist from the Veterans Affairs Hospital in the city 2 hours away. Mrs. Reynolds, Dr. Morrison began, her manner direct but compassionate. Your husband is experiencing a severe inflammatory response. The lesions have progressed internally, affecting his lymphatic system and showing early signs of neurological involvement. Olivia, herself a medical professional, understood the clinical language, but struggled to process it applied to Marcus Hermarchus, lying unnaturally still beneath crisp hospital sheets. What's our next step? We need to begin plasmapheresis immediately, Doctor. Morrison explained. It's essentially blood filtering, removing the inflammatory compounds circulating in his system. Simultaneously, we'll start a more aggressive immunosuppressant regimen. And if that doesn't work, Olivia pressed, needing the full truth. Dr. Morrison's expression softened slightly. Then we consider more experimental approaches. But Mrs. Reynolds, you should understand, even with successful treatment, there may be lasting neurological effects. The memory issues your husband has already experienced might become more pronounced or permanent. The words landed like physical blows. Olivia thought of Marcus forgetting Thomas's birthday, struggling to recall shelter residents' names, misplacing his keys 3 times in one morning, small incidents that now formed an ominous pattern. Will he forget me? The question escaped before she could contain it. It's impossible to predict exactly how memory might be affected, Doctor. Morrison replied carefully. But recent memories are typically more vulnerable than deeply established ones. Olivia nodded, swallowing hard. When can we start treatment? We're preparing the equipment now. But there's something else, Doctor. Morrison hesitated. I'd like your permission to include Noah in our treatment protocol. His blood work shows similar markers, though his condition is less advanced. Addressing it now could prevent the progression we're seeing in Marcus. The treatment began just as Mayor Turner appeared in the doorway, looking uncomfortable in the clinical setting. Mrs. Reynolds, a word if I may. In the hallway, he cleared his throat. The council has postponed their vote on the shelter. In light of recent developments. You mean in light of my husband collapsing while defending people you'd rather forget exist? Olivia's exhaustion stripped away her usual diplomacy. The mayor had the grace to look abashed. That's not entirely fair. We have the entire town to consider property values, business development, safety. And don't those people count as part of your town? Or are they just inconvenient eyes ruining your perfect Main Street renovation plans? Mrs. Reynolds, it's Nurse Reynolds, actually, Olivia corrected sharply. And right now I need to be with my husband, unless you're here to tell me the council has approved permanent zoning for the shelter. We're organizing a blood drive, he said quickly, for Marcus and Noah, and a fundraiser for the shelter's required modifications. The council thought it might help. Olivia faced him, momentarily speechless at this unexpected development. My wife attended the meeting, Turner continued, looking deeply uncomfortable. Margaret was moved by what she saw, by what your husband said before he collapsed. She reminded me that community means everyone, not just property owners and business interests. 1 year later, autumn painted Riverside in vibrant hues as Olivia Reynolds stood at the large picture window of the newly completed community center, watching volunteers arrange chairs for the day's dedication ceremony. The morning light caught the building's fresh bronze plaque, the Reynolds Cooper Veterans and Family Support Center. Marcus's condition had stabilized under Dr. Morrison's treatment protocol. The physical symptoms had receded. The lesions healed, leaving only faint circular scars as reminders. The neurological damage proved more stubborn, creating a new reality they'd gradually learned to navigate together. On good days like today, Marcus was almost entirely himself, sharp and engaged, with only occasional gaps in recent memory. On difficult days, confusion dominated, and the present slipped away like water through cupped hands, leaving him adrift in fragments of the past. But something essential had been secured, not just in the bricks and mortar of the center, but in the connections formed, the community transformed, the lives redirected. Daniel's architectural plans, discovered in an old footlocker, had built something far greater than even he might have imagined, not just shelter from storms, but the promise of new beginnings, spanning outward in widening circles of hope. "You ready?" Marcus asked, appearing beside her. He looked handsome in his new suit, though thinner than before his illness. His eyes were clear today, present and warm. "Almost," Olivia replied, straightening his tie. "Emma's waiting to give you her latest masterpiece before the ceremony starts." Marcus smiled. "Did you see the memorial garden? The blue hydrangeas Daniel loved are blooming." "I saw," she said softly, taking his hand. "He would have loved this place." "He does love it," Marcus corrected gently. "Through every person who finds shelter here, through every life that changes. He's still helping people through us." Together they walked toward the gathering crowd, toward the future they'd built from the ruins of secrets and silence, from the ashes of loss and fear. A future where no one faced their darkest moments alone. Life's hardest battles are often fought in silence. Remember Marcus Reynolds, who built a shelter for others while hiding his own wounds. His story reminds us that our greatest strength emerges not in perfect health, but in how we face our deepest vulnerabilities. Community isn't just something we build for others. It's what sustains us when our own foundations tremble. The shelter he created became his salvation. The people he helped returned that kindness tenfold. When his memory began to fail, others held his story safe. When his body weakened, others carried his mission forward. This is the miracle of human connection, that in our brokenness we find wholeness together. Olivia Reynolds adjusted her violin case as she walked through the empty corridors of Pine Valley School of Arts. At 36, the music teacher had almost given up hope of having another child after years of trying with her husband Marcus. The ultrasound technician smiled reassuringly as she spread the cold gel across Olivia's still flat stomach. But that smile vanished seconds later. "I need to get Dr. Morrison," she said abruptly, hurrying from the room without explanation. 6 months later, as Olivia lay on another exam table for her 20-week checkup, the new technician's face went ghostly white. "Mrs. Reynolds," she whispered, "I need to get the specialist immediately." The screen showed something that would forever change the lives of everyone in the Reynolds family. Pine Valley, Colorado was the kind of mountain town where neighbors still brought homemade soup when someone fell ill, and shared stories over steaming cups of coffee at the local cafe. Nestled against the backdrop of majestic peaks, its population of just under 4,000 prided themselves on knowing everyone's business, sometimes before the people themselves did. The local School of Arts, where Olivia had taught violin and piano for nearly 15 years, sat at the heart of the community. Its rustic wooden facade, weathered but welcoming, had become a second home to generations of young musicians. Olivia Reynolds had moved to Pine Valley after her divorce 12 years ago, seeking a fresh start for herself and 4-year-old Ruby. At 36, she carried herself with the grace of a musician, her movements measured and deliberate despite the whispers that sometimes followed her. Whispers about the child she'd lost 6 years ago in her second trimester. That miscarriage had nearly broken her, leaving a hollow space that even her beloved music couldn't quite fill. She had auburn hair that she often wore in an elegant twist, laugh lines around her eyes that had deepened with both joy and sorrow, and hands that always seemed to be in motion, conducting an invisible orchestra, comforting a struggling student, or nervously tapping out rhythms when anxious. Marcus Reynolds had entered her life like an unexpected symphony. The former mountain rescue specialist had returned to his hometown after an accident ended his high-altitude career. Now working as a climbing instructor for the local adventure center, his solid 6-foot frame and steady presence had been Olivia's anchor when she'd thought herself beyond healing. At 40, the lines around his eyes spoke of countless rescue missions and lives saved in treacherous conditions. But his smile remained genuine and warm, especially when directed at his wife or stepdaughter. Ruby Reynolds, now 15, had inherited her mother's auburn hair, but paired it with an artistic streak that manifested in vivid sketches and watercolors rather than musical notes. The Reynolds home wasn't fancy. A cozy 2-story cabin with a wraparound porch where Olivia's reading nook sat beside Marcus's climbing gear. But it had been filled with love, if not always harmony, until recently when everything began to change. The day Olivia discovered she was pregnant began like any other Thursday in February. She'd been feeling unusually tired for weeks, attributing it to the demanding schedule of preparing her students for the upcoming spring recital. It was Ruby who had raised the possibility with the blunt directness of a teenager. "Mom, when was your last period? You've been getting sick every morning for 2 weeks." Olivia had dismissed the idea immediately. After 6 years of trying with Marcus, after countless disappointments and one devastating loss, she'd quietly accepted that Ruby would be her only child. But that evening, alone in the bathroom with a drugstore test, she watched in disbelief as 2 pink lines appeared, clear and undeniable. Marcus, her voice had trembled as she called him into the bathroom. He took one look at the test in her shaking hands and pulled her into an embrace so tight She could feel his heartbeat against her cheek. When he finally released her, she saw tears tracking down his weathered face. "Are you sure?" he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. Olivia nodded, her own tears flowing freely. "I need to see Dr. Morrison to confirm. But yes, I think so." That night, as Marcus slept beside her, his hand protectively resting on her still flat stomach, Olivia stared at the ceiling, afraid to fully embrace the joy threatening to overwhelm her. She remembered all too vividly the crushing pain of loss, the silent sympathy in friends' eyes, the emptiness of the nursery they'd painted pale green. Part of her wanted to guard her heart, to prepare for another heartbreak. But despite her fears, hope bloomed stubborn and bright. Telling Ruby had been another matter entirely. They broke the news over Saturday breakfast, expecting excitement or at least cautious happiness. Instead, Ruby's face had hardened into a mask of teenage displeasure. "Great. So now you'll have your real family," she muttered, pushing away her half-eaten waffles. "Guess I should start looking at art schools early." "Ruby, that's not fair," Olivia said, reaching for her daughter's hand across the table. "You know that's not true, whatever. I have a painting to finish." Ruby had stomped upstairs, slamming her bedroom door with practiced teenage precision. Marcus had squeezed Olivia's shoulder. "Give her time. It's a big change." Dr. Catherine Morrison had been Olivia's gynecologist since she'd moved to Pine Valley. In her early 50s, with auburn hair streaked with silver and rimless glasses, she'd guided Olivia through her miscarriage and the grief that followed. When she confirmed the pregnancy, her professional demeanor softened with genuine warmth. "Based on your hormone levels and last period, you're about 8 weeks along," she said, making notes in Olivia's chart. "Given your history and age, this is considered a high-risk pregnancy. We'll want to monitor you closely." Olivia nodded, swallowing hard. "What are the chances that I'll lose this one too?" Dr. Morrison set down her pen and looked Olivia directly in the eyes. "Every pregnancy is different. Yes, there are increased risks after a previous loss and at 36, but many women in similar situations have perfectly healthy babies. We'll take every precaution." The first ultrasound had been scheduled for the 12-week mark. Olivia had counted the days, trying to balance caution with the fragile hope growing alongside the life inside her. Marcus had rearranged his climbing instruction schedule to attend every appointment, his rescue training now directed toward learning everything about prenatal care. He downloaded pregnancy apps, brought home books from the library, and even started talking to Olivia's stomach each night, sharing stories of his most memorable rescues with their developing child. The news had spread through Pine Valley with predictable speed. Most reactions were supportive. Homemade meals appeared, offers to help with heavy lifting, congratulatory cards. But Olivia didn't miss the whispers that sometimes stopped when she entered the teacher's lounge, or the concern, barely masked, as congratulations from those who remembered her previous loss. "Aren't you worried at your age?" asked Patricia Thompson, the school administrator, with poorly disguised curiosity. "Of course she's not," interrupted Laura Winters, who taught art. "Olivia's healthier than teachers half her age. This baby's lucky to have her." Olivia appreciated the support, but found herself increasingly protective of her privacy. She began to wear looser clothing, deflecting questions with practiced vagueness. At night, the nightmares came. Dreams of emptiness, of searching hospital corridors for a baby's cry she couldn't locate, of returning to that pale green nursery to find it cold and abandoned. But each morning, she would place her hand on her gradually swelling abdomen, feeling the solid reality of the life growing there, and renew her silent promise. This time would be different. This time she would bring this baby home. At exactly 20 weeks into her pregnancy, Olivia returned to Pine Valley Medical Center for her mid-pregnancy ultrasound. Dr. Morrison was away at a conference, so a technician Olivia hadn't met before conducted the scan. The young woman, whose name tag read Jessica, made pleasant small talk as she prepared the equipment. "Are you hoping for a boy or a girl?" Jessica asked, squeezing the warm gel onto Olivia's rounded belly. "Healthy," Olivia replied without hesitation. "Just healthy." Marcus stood beside her, holding her hand as they both watched the screen. The grainy black and white image appeared, showing their baby's profile. Olivia felt tears spring to her eyes as she saw the tiny nose, the curve of the forehead, the small hand that seemed to wave at them. "There's your baby," Jessica said, smiling. "Good strong heartbeat, measuring right on schedule." Olivia squeezed Marcus's hand tighter, allowing herself to fully embrace joy for perhaps the first time in this pregnancy. The technician continued moving the wand, taking measurements and capturing images. Then suddenly, her cheerful commentary stopped. She frowned, adjusted the wand, and leaned closer to the screen. "Is something wrong?" Olivia asked, her voice tight with sudden fear. "I'm just going to get Dr. Walker to take a look," Jessica said, her professional smile not quite reaching her eyes. "He's covering for Dr. Morrison today." Before either Olivia or Marcus could ask more questions, Jessica wiped the gel from Olivia's stomach and hurried from the room. The minutes of waiting stretched painfully, with Marcus pacing the small space while Olivia lay still, her hands protectively covering her belly. "It's probably nothing," Marcus said, though his rescue-trained vigilance was fully evident in his tense posture. "They're just being thorough." When the door finally opened, Jessica returned with not only Dr. Walker, but also a tall, distinguished-looking man with salt and pepper hair, and an expensive suit beneath his white coat. "Mrs. Reynolds, I'm Dr. Alexander Thompson," the stranger introduced himself, his voice carrying a hint of Boston in its crisp syllables. "I'm a maternal fetal medicine specialist from Massachusetts General Hospital. I happen to be consulting here this week, and Dr. Walker thought I might take a look at your ultrasound." Olivia felt her mouth go dry. Why would I need a specialist? What's wrong with my baby? Dr. Thompson smiled reassuringly as he took the seat Jessica had vacated. "Let's have another look before we jump to conclusions." The room fell silent, except for the swishing sounds from the ultrasound machine, as Dr. Thompson skillfully maneuvered the wand over Olivia's abdomen. His expression remained neutral, but his eyes narrowed with intense focus. "Mrs. Reynolds," he finally said, turning the screen slightly toward her, "what we're seeing here is quite remarkable. You're actually carrying twins." The word hung in the air like the last note of a discordant symphony. Olivia stared at him in disbelief. "That's impossible," Marcus said firmly. "We've had multiple ultrasounds. They all showed one baby." Dr. Thompson nodded. "Under normal circumstances, twins would be detected in early ultrasounds, but what we're seeing here appears to be a rare phenomenon. He pointed to the screen. Here's the baby your technician was measuring. And here, his finger moved to a different area, is a second fetus, slightly smaller and positioned behind the first. Olivia struggled to process his words. How could we not have known? How could Dr. Morrison have missed this? The position of the second fetus makes it difficult to detect, especially if you weren't specifically looking for multiples, Dr. Thompson explained. Plus, the size discrepancy suggests something even more unusual. The explanation continued, medical terms washing over Olivia as she tried to grasp the reality of what she was hearing. 2 babies, not 1. After years of heartbreak and emptiness, not just 1 miracle, but 2. News traveled through Pine Valley with the speed of an avalanche. By the time Olivia and Marcus arrived home from the hospital, 3 homemade casseroles sat on their porch alongside a hand-knitted baby blanket. Olivia's phone buzzed constantly with messages from well-meaning friends and colleagues. Marcus finally turned it off, protecting her from the overwhelming attention. Ruby, surprisingly, was the first to break through Olivia's shock. Twins? She asked, her usual teenage indifference cracking to reveal genuine curiosity. Can I see the pictures? As Olivia showed her daughter the ultrasound images, carefully explaining which blob was which baby according to Dr. Thompson, she noticed something shift in Ruby's expression. A softening, perhaps even excitement. Twins, Ruby repeated softly, already reaching for her sketchbook. That's actually kind of amazing, Mom. But the brief moment of family unity soon faced new challenges. Dr. Thompson, it turned out, had not been in Pine Valley by coincidence. The renowned specialist had been consulting on difficult cases throughout rural Colorado. And now, he seemed determined to make Olivia's pregnancy the centerpiece of a research paper. His calls came daily, requesting additional tests, offering to arrange transfer to his facility in Boston. This could be an important contribution to medical literature. He insisted during one call. Your case could help us understand a rare phenomenon. Marcus's protective instincts flared. My wife isn't a medical curiosity, he told Dr. Thompson firmly. She's a pregnant woman who needs care, not scrutiny. As media interest began to build, fueled by someone at the hospital leaking information, Olivia felt her private joy transforming into something more complicated. The miracle she had longed for was becoming a spectacle, and somewhere beneath her gratitude lurked a creeping fear that this unexpected development might still end in heartbreak, only doubled. Dr. Catherine Morrison returned from her conference to find her patient at the center of a medical whirlwind. In her office with Olivia and Marcus, she reviewed the findings with the measured caution that had earned their trust over the years. What Dr. Thompson is suggesting is a condition called superfetation, she explained, removing her glasses to rub the bridge of her nose. It's extremely rare. Only about 10 documented cases in medical literature. Essentially, it means Olivia released a second egg after already being pregnant, and that egg was also fertilized. How is that even possible? Marcus asked, his arm protectively around Olivia's shoulders. Doesn't pregnancy stop ovulation? Typically, yes. The hormonal changes during pregnancy usually prevent further ovulation. That's what makes this so unusual. Dr. Morrison put her glasses back on and leaned forward slightly. The size difference between the fetuses supports this theory. The second baby appears to be about 3 weeks behind in development compared to the first. Olivia placed her hands on her belly, trying to reconcile this information with what she felt inside her. Are they both healthy? Will the smaller one catch up? Both fetuses appear structurally normal from what we can see on the ultrasound, Dr. Morrison assured her. As for catching up, that's unlikely. The second baby will probably remain smaller throughout the pregnancy and at birth. This isn't necessarily a problem, but it does mean we need to monitor the pregnancy even more carefully than we already planned. The drive home was quiet, both Olivia and Marcus lost in their own thoughts. When they pulled into their driveway, Olivia noticed a news van parked across the street. "How did they find out so quickly?" she whispered, sinking lower in her seat. Marcus's jaw tightened. "Someone at the hospital must have talked. Stay in the car. I'll handle this." Olivia watched through the windshield as Marcus approached the reporters with the determined stride she recognized from when he was protecting injured climbers. Though she couldn't hear his words, his body language made the message clear. "Leave my family alone." To her relief, the van departed a few minutes later. Inside their home, Ruby was waiting with uncharacteristic concern. "People at school are talking about you, Mom. Jenny Parker said her mom heard you're having some kind of miracle pregnancy that's never happened before." Olivia sighed, sinking onto the couch. "It's not quite that dramatic, but yes, it seems I'm carrying twins that were conceived at different times. It's very unusual." "Is it dangerous?" Ruby asked, the question striking at Olivia's own deepest fear. "Dr. Morrison is taking good care of me," Olivia answered, choosing her words carefully. "We're doing everything possible to make sure both babies are healthy." That night, after Ruby had gone to bed, Marcus found Olivia standing in the spare room they'd avoided converting into a nursery, superstitiously unwilling to tempt fate. "I think we should start getting this ready," he said softly. "Two babies will need plenty of space." Olivia leaned back against his chest, feeling his solid presence anchoring her against the current of fear threatening to sweep her away. What if something goes wrong? What if history repeats itself, but twice as bad? Marcus turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her shoulders. "I can't promise nothing will go wrong, but I can promise you won't face it alone, whatever happens." The next morning brought a call from Dr. Thompson. He spoke rapidly, excitement evident in his voice as he outlined his research plans. "I've discussed your case with colleagues at Mass General, and we'd like to document this pregnancy thoroughly. Sequential ultrasounds, hormone level monitoring, amniocentesis for genetic confirmation." "Amniocentesis carries a risk of miscarriage," Olivia interrupted, her protective instincts flaring. "A very small risk weighed against the valuable data." "These aren't data points, Dr. Thompson," Olivia said, her teacher's voice emerging, calm but firm. "They're my babies." The conversation ended with Dr. Thompson clearly disappointed, but Olivia resolute. When she shared the exchange with Marcus, his expression darkened. "I think we need to be careful about who we trust with your care," he said. "Morrison has your best interests at heart, but Thompson seems to see this as his ticket to medical fame." Their concerns were validated later that week, when a medical journal published a preliminary article about the Pine Valley superfetation case without naming Olivia, but including enough details that anyone in town would recognize her. The article, co-authored by Dr. Thompson, speculated on the mechanisms that might allow for such a rare occurrence and mentioned plans for further study. He had no right, Marcus fumed, pacing their living room. That's your private medical information. Even Dr. Morrison was disturbed by the breach. I've spoken with the hospital administration, she assured Olivia during her next checkup. Dr. Thompson has been reminded of patient confidentiality protocols. As Olivia entered her 6th month of pregnancy, the physical demands intensified. Her body prepared to nurture one baby, strained to support two. Her ankles swelled, her back ached constantly, and sleeping became an exercise in creative positioning. Through it all, she continued teaching, determined to finish the school year before starting her maternity leave. Her students, young musicians with their unfiltered curiosity, asked questions adults delicately avoided. Mrs. Reynolds, how can you have 2 babies that aren't twins? Asked Tommy during a violin lesson. They are twins, Olivia explained patiently. Just twins who started growing at slightly different times. Like when my mom's garden sprouts at different times, offered Maria, whose mother ran Pine Valley's organic farm. Olivia smiled. That's a lovely way to think about it. The children's simple acceptance contrasted sharply with the complex reactions of the adult community. Pine Valley had divided into camps. Those who treated Olivia's pregnancy as a near-religious miracle, those who viewed it with scientific fascination, and those who whispered about unnatural pregnancies and modern medicine going too far. Financial concerns added another layer of stress. Their insurance company balked at covering the additional specialists Dr. Morrison had recommended, claiming insufficient evidence for the superfetation diagnosis. Marcus spent hours on the phone arguing with representatives, his voice growing increasingly tense. They're treating this like some elective cosmetic procedure. He vented after one particularly frustrating call. As if we chose to have a medically complex pregnancy. The strain began to show in their marriage, not in major conflicts, but in the small irritations that accumulated like stones in a climbing shoe. Marcus's protective instincts sometimes manifested as controlling behavior, while Olivia's fear often emerged as snappish impatience. Ruby retreated into her art, spending hours in her room with sketchbooks and watercolors, emerging with paintings that revealed more understanding than her words ever showed, detailed studies of her mother's changing profile, of Marcus's worried eyes, of hands cradling an oversized belly. At 28 weeks, Olivia's routine ultrasound revealed something that cracked her carefully maintained composure. Dr. Morrison's expression grew serious as she studied the screen. I'm concerned about Twin B's heart, she said, using the medical designation they'd adopted for the smaller baby. I'm seeing what might be a ventricular septal defect, a hole between the lower chambers of the heart. The words landed like physical blows. How serious is it? Olivia asked, gripping Marcus's hand so tightly her knuckles whitened. It's difficult to be certain at this stage, but we need to consult with a pediatric cardiologist. Some VSDs close on their own before birth or soon after. Others require surgical correction. Outside the examination room, Olivia finally broke. Tears she'd been holding back for months fell freely as Marcus held her, his own eyes damp. "I knew it was too good to be true," she sobbed. "We're going to lose this baby too." "No," Marcus said firmly. "This is a challenge, not an ending. Thousands of babies are born with heart defects every year and grow up perfectly healthy after treatment." Dr. Morrison arranged an appointment with a pediatric cardiologist in Denver, 2 hours away. The specialist, Dr. Olivia Thomas, confirmed the VSD, but offered cautious optimism. "The defect is moderate in size," she explained, showing them the detailed images. "In many cases, these resolve spontaneously before birth, as the heart continues to develop. If not, surgical repair has excellent outcomes, though we would want to wait until the baby has gained sufficient weight." On the drive back to Pine Valley, Olivia stared out the window at the passing mountains, their permanence somehow comforting against her tumultuous emotions. "We should start thinking about names," she said suddenly. "Real names, not just Twin A and Twin B." Marcus glanced at her, surprise and relief crossing his face. It was the first time she'd allowed herself to plan concretely for their arrival. "Any ideas?" "I've been thinking about Leo for the boy," Olivia said thoughtfully, "and Luna for the girl." "Leo and Luna," Marcus repeated softly. "Perfect for mountain babies." As her third trimester approached, Olivia reluctantly agreed to begin her maternity leave early. Her music students presented her with a handmade book of compositions they'd written for the babies. At home, the spare room gradually transformed into a nursery. Unlike the cautious preparations of her previous pregnancy, this time the community rallied around them. Weekend work parties filled the house with the sounds of assembly. Marcus and fellow mountain guides mounting shelves, teachers from school arranging books, Ruby supervising the artistic arrangement of stuffed animals and mobiles. 2 cribs, one donated by a family whose twins had outgrown them, stood side by side beneath a window that caught the morning sun. The financial picture brightened unexpectedly when a letter arrived from the insurance company reversing their decision after review by their medical board. Olivia suspected Dr. Morrison's firm advocacy had influenced the outcome, though the doctor modestly deflected credit when thanked. Yet as the physical preparations progressed, Olivia's nightmares intensified. She dreamed of hospital corridors where babies' cries echoed, but could never be located, of cribs empty except for folded blankets, of tiny coffins. She woke gasping, Marcus's arms immediately around her as if he'd been waiting for her fear to surface. "They're still here," he would whisper, his hand on her swollen belly where movement could almost always be felt now. "Feel that? They're fighters, both of them, and they were." Each checkup showed Twin A Leo thriving, while Twin B Luna, though smaller, maintained steady growth. The heart defect remained, neither worsening nor resolving, a waiting game they had no choice but to play. As Olivia entered her 32nd week, Dr. Morrison began discussing delivery plans. "Given the complexity, I'd recommend a scheduled C-section at 36 weeks, assuming both babies maintain stability until then." But babies, as Olivia's mother had often said, made their own plans, and the Reynolds twins, it seemed, had already begun asserting their independence. The spring storm arrived without warning, bringing heavy snow that closed the mountain passes between Pine Valley and the nearest major hospital in Denver. Olivia had awakened at 4 in the morning with a piercing headache and the disturbing realization that her wedding ring no longer fit her swollen finger. By breakfast, her blood pressure reading on the home monitor Marcus had purchased was high enough to trigger alarm. "I'm calling Dr. Morrison," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the concern etched across his face. He spoke in low, urgent tones, while Olivia sat at the kitchen table, trying to control her rising panic as spots danced at the edges of her vision. "She wants us to come in immediately," he reported after hanging up. "Where's Ruby?" "Still asleep," Olivia said, wincing as a sharp pain lanced through her abdomen. "Marcus, I'm scared." He knelt beside her chair, his hands clasping hers. "I know, but we've prepared for this. One step at a time." The snow pelted against the windshield as Marcus navigated their SUV through Pine Valley's treacherous streets. The local radio station was broadcasting avalanche warnings, reporting that the eastern route to Denver was already impassable. Olivia felt each bump and slide like a physical assault, her body tense with pain and fear. At the small community hospital, Dr. Morrison was waiting, her usual composed demeanor tinged with urgency. "Preeclampsia," she confirmed after examining Olivia. "Your blood pressure is dangerously high, and your lab results show protein in your urine. We need to get those babies delivered soon." "It's too early," Olivia protested instinctively, placing her hands over her belly where she could feel movement. "They're only at 32 weeks. 32 weeks for Leo, 29 for Luna," Dr. Morrison corrected gently. "But the bigger concern right now is your health. Preeclampsia can lead to seizures, stroke, or worse if untreated." The gravity of the situation settled over the room like a physical weight. Dr. Morrison continued, "Ideally, we transfer you to Denver Regional where they have a higher level NICU, but with the passes closed." She shook her head. "Life Flight helicopter services are grounded due to the storm." Marcus's rescue training seemed to take over. "What's our next best option?" he asked, his voice clipped and focused. "We deliver here," Dr. Morrison said. "Our facilities aren't ideal for premature twins, especially with Luna's heart condition, but we have basic NICU capabilities. Once the storm passes, we can arrange transport for the babies if needed." As Dr. Morrison stepped out to make arrangements, Marcus called Ruby, who had been awakened by their hasty departure. "Don't try to come to the hospital yourself," he instructed her. "The roads are dangerous. Mrs. Winters will pick you up." Olivia could hear Ruby's voice rising in protest even through the phone. "I want to be there. They're my brother and sister." Something shifted in Olivia's heart at those words. The first time Ruby had claimed the babies as her siblings rather than intruders. "Tell her," Olivia began, then took the phone herself. "Ruby, I need you to do something important. In my bedside drawer, there's a small cloth bag with 2 baby hats I knitted. Can you bring those when Mrs. Winters drives you over?" The request seemed to calm Ruby, giving her a mission. "The green ones." "I know where they are, Mom." Her voice faltered. "Everything's going to be okay, right?" Olivia closed her eyes against a fresh wave of pain. "We're in good hands, sweetheart." The next hour passed in a blur of activity. Olivia was moved to a surgical room. Monitors were attached to track both her vitals and the baby's, and an IV was inserted to deliver medication to lower her blood pressure. Through it all, Marcus remained by her side, his presence a steady anchor. Dr. Morrison returned, accompanied by Dr. Walker, and a pediatrician Olivia hadn't met before. Dr. Michael Roberts specializes in neonatal care, Dr. Morrison explained. He's our best option for the twins when they arrive. Dr. Roberts was younger than Olivia had expected, perhaps in his early 30s, but his calm confidence was reassuring. "We've prepared the NICU for both babies," he told them. "Our main concerns will be their lung maturity and maintaining their body temperature, plus monitoring Luna's heart function." As the medical team prepared for the C-section, the hospital lost power briefly before the backup generators hummed to life. The storm's intensity was growing, wind howling around the building's corners, like an out-of-tune orchestra. "Perfect timing," Marcus muttered, his attempt at humor falling flat against the tension in the room. Olivia squeezed his hand. "At least they'll have a dramatic birth story to tell someday." The anesthesiologist explained the spinal block procedure, and soon a blessed numbness spread through Olivia's lower body. A blue surgical drape was raised, separating her from the view of her own abdomen. Marcus, now dressed in scrubs, sat by her head, his eyes visible above his surgical mask, steady, loving, terrified. "We're beginning now," Dr. Morrison announced from behind the drape. "You'll feel some pressure, but no pain." The tugging sensation was strange, but not painful as promised. Olivia focused on Marcus's eyes, on the rhythmic beeping of the heart monitors, tracking both her heartbeat and those of their children. Dr. Morrison's voice remained professional and calm, occasionally calling for instruments or directing her surgical team. Then suddenly, a new sound filled the room. A thin, indignant cry that struck Olivia's heart like lightning. "Leo is out," Dr. Morrison announced. "He's a fighter." Marcus's eyes crinkled above his mask. He was smiling, perhaps crying. "A son," he whispered. "We have a son." Dr. Roberts immediately took the baby to a warming station where a team assessed him. "Good color, good respiratory effort," called one nurse. "APGAR 8. He's on the small side, about 4 pounds 6 ounces, but excellent for 32 weeks, Dr. Roberts reported. Before Olivia could fully process this information, she felt another tug and pressure. "And here comes Luna," Dr. Morrison said, working to deliver the second baby. The room grew silent, except for the mechanical sounds of equipment and the soft, wet noises of surgery. Olivia felt the pressure increase, then release, but the expected cry didn't come. "Baby's out," Dr. Morrison announced, her voice tighter than before. "It's a girl," the silence stretched. Unbearable. Olivia couldn't see past the drape, couldn't know what was happening. Marcus half rose from his seat, his grip on Olivia's hand painfully tight. "Why isn't she crying?" Olivia asked, her voice breaking. "What's wrong with her?" Dr. Roberts and his team moved with practiced efficiency at the second warming station, their backs blocking Olivia's view. Words filtered through respiratory distress, cyanotic, possible cardiac complication. Each term stabbed through Olivia like physical pain. "Marcus, go to her," Olivia urged, releasing his hand. "Go see our daughter." Torn between his wife and newborn child, Marcus hesitated only briefly before crossing to the warming station. Olivia could see only his back, the tense set of his shoulders as he watched the medical team work. As Dr. Morrison completed the surgery, closing Olivia's incision with careful stitches, The minutes stretched endlessly. Then finally, a different sound. Not a full-throated cry, but a strangled, gasping whimper that nevertheless was the most beautiful thing Olivia had ever heard. "She's breathing on her own," Dr. Roberts announced, the relief in his voice palpable. "She's very small, 3 pounds 9 ounces, and we'll need to monitor her closely, especially her heart, but she's fighting." "Fighting," Marcus repeated, returning to Olivia's side. His eyes were red-rimmed above his mask. "She's tiny, Olivia. So incredibly small. But she grabbed my finger when I touched her hand." As the medical team prepared both babies for transfer to the NICU, Dr. Roberts brought each briefly to Olivia. Leo, now a real person with reddish skin and a shock of dark hair, was bundled tightly, only his face visible, his eyes squeezed shut against the bright lights. Luna, impossibly smaller, with translucent skin and a bluish tinge to her lips, wore a tiny knit cap already, her chest rising and falling with visible effort. "We'll need to take them to the NICU now," Dr. Roberts said gently. "Your husband can come with us if he'd like." Olivia nodded, touching each tiny face with trembling fingers. "Go with them," she told Marcus. "Don't let them out of your sight." As they wheeled the incubators from the room, Marcus following close behind, Olivia felt a strange emptiness, her body suddenly vacant after months of shared occupancy. Dr. Morrison's voice seemed to come from far away as she explained the post-surgical care, the recovery process, when Olivia might be able to visit her babies in the NICU. Against the backdrop of the still raging storm, in a hospital running on generator power, with her children whisked away to fight for stability, Olivia closed her eyes. The first battle was won. They were here. They were alive. But she knew with a mother's instinct that the war for their survival was just beginning. The first 48 hours passed in a blur of pain medication, hourly vital checks, and desperate prayers. Olivia's recovery from the C-section was complicated by her preeclampsia, which required continued medication and monitoring. She couldn't visit the NICU until the second day, when a nurse helped her into a wheelchair and navigated the hospital corridors to where her children fought for their lives. The NICU was a different world. Hushed voices, the persistent beeping of monitors, the artificial warmth designed to mimic the womb the twins had left too soon. Marcus had practically lived there since the birth, leaving only briefly to shower and check on Ruby, who was staying with the Winters family while the storm continued to rage outside. "Here's our boy," the NICU nurse said softly, wheeling Olivia to the first incubator. Leo Reynolds lay on his back, tiny chest rising and falling rhythmically. Tubes and wires connected him to machines that monitored every heartbeat, every breath. His skin had taken on a jaundiced hue common in premature babies, but the doctors assured them this was easily treated with phototherapy. "He's doing remarkably well," the nurse explained. "He's breathing on his own, maintaining his temperature, and has started taking small amounts of your pumped milk through a feeding tube." Olivia reached through the incubator's port to touch her son's hand. His fingers reflexively curled around hers, a grip surprisingly strong for someone so small. The second incubator held Luna, smaller, frailer, surrounded by even more equipment. A ventilator assisted her breathing, its mechanical whoosh a counterpoint to the erratic beeping of her heart monitor. Unlike her brother's pinkish-yellow skin, Luna's had a bluish tinge that spoke of her struggling circulation. The cardiologist confirmed a moderate ventricular septal defect. Marcus explained gently. The hole in her heart is causing some blood to flow in the wrong direction. Can they fix it? Olivia asked, her voice barely audible. Not yet. She's too small for surgery. They want her to gain weight first, and there's still a chance it could close on its own. His voice held forced optimism, but Olivia could see the fear in the shadows under his eyes, the stubble on his usually clean-shaven face. Dr. Roberts appeared beside them, reviewing Luna's chart. We're cautiously optimistic, he said. She stabilized overnight, and her oxygen levels have improved slightly. The next few days will be critical. Back in her hospital room, Olivia was surprised to find Dr. Alexander Thompson waiting. The specialist who had first identified her unusual pregnancy looked oddly out of place in Pine Valley's small community hospital. His expensive suit exchanged for medical scrubs, but his air of authority unchanged. I came as soon as I heard, he said, standing as Olivia was wheeled in. I was at a conference in Seattle when the news reached me about your emergency delivery. How did you know? Marcus asked, suspicion edging his voice. We haven't even called family yet. Dr. Thompson had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. I asked Dr. Morrison to alert me when the delivery occurred for research purposes. Research, Olivia repeated flatly. My children are fighting for their lives, and you're thinking about your research. My interest isn't merely academic, Dr. Thompson insisted. Cases like yours advance our understanding of multiple pregnancies. That knowledge ultimately improves care for other mothers and babies. Our daughter has a hole in her heart, Marcus said, his voice tight with controlled anger. Is that part of your superfetation study too? Dr. Thompson frowned. The VSD isn't necessarily related to the superfetation. Congenital heart defects occur in approximately 1% of all births. Get out. Olivia's voice was quiet but steel-edged. Get out of my room. After Dr. Thompson's departure, Dr. Morrison arrived with grave news. Luna's latest echocardiogram shows the VSD is larger than we initially thought. She needs specialized care that we simply can't provide here. The passes are still closed, Marcus said, the frustration evident in his voice. I checked an hour ago. The storm is expected to clear by tomorrow morning. Once it does, we want to airlift Luna to Children's Hospital in Denver. They have one of the best pediatric cardiac units in the country. Denver. Olivia's heart sank at the thought of her daughter being so far away. What about Leo? Dr. Morrison hesitated. Ideally, we'd keep the twins together, but Leo is stable enough to remain here until you're discharged, then transfer to Denver, which is closer. Luna's condition requires more immediate specialized intervention. The impossible choice hung in the air. Split the twins who had shared her womb. Separate their family across cities. The logistics alone were overwhelming, not to mention the emotional toll. I'll go with Luna, Marcus decided, his rescue training evident in his decisiveness. Olivia can stay with Leo until she's discharged, then bring him to Denver. And what about Ruby? Olivia asked, thinking of their teenage daughter who had already been sidelined during the crisis. Before Marcus could answer, a commotion in the hallway drew their attention. Ruby herself appeared in the doorway, her hair dusted with snow, clutching a cloth bag, the baby hats Olivia had requested. "The roads to town are clearing," she announced breathlessly. "Mrs. Winters drove me. They're saying the storm is moving east." Seeing her daughter, this lanky teenager with worry etched across her young face, Olivia felt a fresh wave of guilt. In their focus on the twins, they had left Ruby to process these dramatic events largely alone. "I saw them," Ruby continued, moving to Olivia's bedside. "The nurses let me look through the NICU window. They're so tiny," her voice broke slightly. "They are," Olivia agreed, reaching for her daughter's hand. "But they're fighters." That night, as Marcus dozed uncomfortably in the chair beside her bed, Olivia lay awake, torn by guilt and fear. The babies she had longed for were here but gravely at risk. The daughter she already had seemed to drift in the chaos, and a decision about separating the family loomed with the morning light. Luna's condition deteriorated shortly after midnight. The night nurse came to inform them that the baby's oxygen levels had dropped dangerously low, requiring increased ventilator support. Dr. Roberts had been called in and was assessing whether they could wait for morning or needed to attempt an emergency transfer despite the lingering storm. Marcus was immediately alert, years of crisis response evident in his focused questions and calm demeanor. Olivia, still weakened from surgery and medication, could only listen in mounting horror as the gravity of their daughter's condition became clear. "I need to see her," she insisted, attempting to swing her legs out of bed despite the stabbing pain in her abdomen. "Olivia, you can't get up right now," Marcus said gently but firmly, restraining her. "I'll go. I'll be your eyes and ears, and I'll come back the moment there's any news." Left alone, Olivia surrendered to the tears she'd been fighting since the birth. She wept for the normal pregnancy she'd never had, for the healthy babies she'd dreamed of bringing home, for Luna's struggling heart, for Leo's separation from his sister, for Ruby's disrupted life. The nurse who came to check her vitals said nothing about her red eyes, only squeezed her hand in silent sympathy. Dawn brought clearance for the medical helicopter, and with it the moment Olivia had dreaded. Luna, stabilized overnight but still critically ill, would be transferred to Denver immediately. The NICU staff brought the tiny girl to Olivia's room in a portable incubator for a brief goodbye. Through the clear plastic, Luna looked impossibly fragile, a miniature human connected to a tangle of tubes and wires, her chest rising and falling with the rhythm of the ventilator rather than her own strength. The bluish tinge around her lips had deepened, and the monitor showed her heartbeat's irregular pattern. "She has her father's determination," Dr. Roberts said gently. "I've seen sicker babies pull through." Olivia could only nod, her throat too tight for words as she pressed her palm against the incubator, the closest she could come to touching her daughter. Marcus, already dressed for travel with a small bag packed, bent to kiss Olivia goodbye. "Call me the second you land," she whispered against his cheek. "Tell her," her voice broke, "tell her mommy loves her. Tell her to keep fighting." The medical team wheeled Luna away, Marcus following close behind. From her window, Olivia watched the helicopter lift off, its rotors whipping the fresh snow into small cyclones. It grew smaller against the lightening sky until it disappeared entirely, taking with it a piece of her heart. In the NICU, Leo continued his steady progress, seemingly unaware that his slightly younger twin had been whisked away. Olivia visited him every 3 hours, reading children's books through the incubator's ports, leaving items with her scent for comfort, pumping milk for his feedings. Between visits, she lay in her hospital bed, phone clutched in her hand, waiting for updates from Denver. The first report came that evening. Luna had arrived safely and was being evaluated by the cardiac team at Children's Hospital. The preliminary assessment confirmed the large VSD and identified an additional complication, a patent ductus arteriosus that further compromised her circulation. They're discussing surgical options, Marcus reported, his voice tight with exhaustion. The cardiologist here thinks the repair should be done sooner rather than later despite her size. What are the risks? Olivia asked, dreading the answer. Marcus's pause told her everything before he spoke. Significant, but the risks of waiting may be greater. That night, alone in her hospital room while Ruby slept on a cot beside her, Olivia faced the darkest hours of her life. One child fighting in a distant city, one child struggling nearby, one child trying to be brave through it all. And she, their mother, powerless to protect any of them from the pain that had only just begun. 3 days after Luna's transfer to Denver, Olivia was discharged from Pine Valley Community Hospital. Leo remained in the NICU, making steady progress, but still too small and fragile for release. The impossible choice became reality. Which child needed her more? Go to Denver, Dr. Morrison advised gently during Olivia's final checkup. Leo is stable and improving daily. Luna is facing surgery. Marcus needs support too. It was Ruby who ultimately made the decision possible. I'll stay with Leo, the 15-year-old announced with unexpected maturity. Mrs. Winters said I can live with them. They're only 10 minutes from the hospital. I can visit him every day after school and FaceTime you so you can see him too. Olivia studied her daughter's face, searching for signs of resentment or martyrdom, but found only determination. Are you sure? Mom, I've barely held my brother, and I haven't even met my sister yet. Ruby's voice caught slightly. I can't help Luna right now, but I can help Leo. Let me do this. Arrangements were made quickly. The Winters family, Laura from school, and her husband James, welcomed Ruby with genuine warmth. Olivia packed a single suitcase, kissed Leo goodbye with promises to return soon, and boarded a medical transport flight to Denver. Her surgical incision still tender, her heart split between 3 cities. Children's Hospital of Denver stood in stark contrast to Pine Valley's modest medical center. A sprawling complex of modern buildings with specialized wings for every pediatric need imaginable. Olivia found Marcus in the cardiac intensive care unit, slumped in a chair beside Luna's incubator, unshaven and hollow-eyed. She's holding her own, he said after embracing Olivia carefully, mindful of her incision. The surgical team is meeting this morning to make the final decision. Luna looked even smaller than Olivia remembered, dwarfed by the medical equipment surrounding her. The ventilator tube taped to her tiny mouth, the monitoring leads adhered to her translucent chest, the IV lines delivering medications and nutrients. All of it obscured the baby girl beneath. Only her dark hair peeking out from under a knit cap reminded Olivia of the child she had carried. Can I touch her? Olivia asked the attending nurse. Of course. Just be gentle with the lines. Olivia reached through the port in the incubator, placing her finger against Luna's miniature palm. Unlike Leo's reflexive grip, Luna's fingers remained still. The monitors showed her heartbeat too fast, too irregular, and her oxygen levels hovering at concerning numbers. The surgical consult brought Dr. Isabella Martinez, a pediatric cardiothoracic surgeon whose competence was matched only by her compassion. She explained Luna's condition with clarity, but without sugarcoating the reality. The VSD, the hole between the lower chambers, is large enough that it's causing significant mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. Combined with the PDA, a blood vessel that should have closed after birth but hasn't, it's putting tremendous strain on her heart and lungs. "Can it be repaired?" Olivia asked, clutching Marcus's hand. "Yes, but there are complicating factors. Luna is very small, even for her gestational age. Surgery on an infant this tiny carries additional risks." However, Dr. Martinez continued, "Waiting also has risks. Her heart is working too hard, and eventually it will start to fail." The decision was agonizing, but ultimately clear. Luna needed surgery. And soon, the procedure was scheduled for the following morning. A delicate operation to close both the VSD and the PDA, requiring heart-lung bypass on a body that weighed just over 3 pounds. That night, alone in the hospital's parent accommodation room, while Marcus remained at Luna's bedside, Olivia FaceTimed with Ruby. Her older daughter's face appeared on the screen, tired but smiling, the NICU visible in the background. "He gained another ounce today," Ruby reported proudly. "And Dr. Roberts says his jaundice is almost gone." She tilted the phone to show Leo, who looked noticeably less yellow than when Olivia had left. "You're being so brave," Olivia told her daughter, tears threatening. "Dad and I are so proud of you." Ruby's expression grew serious. "How's Luna? Is she going to be okay?" Olivia hesitated, weighing her daughter's right to truth against her need for hope. "She's having surgery tomorrow to fix her heart. The doctors here are the best. I've been drawing her pictures," Ruby said, "for when she's better and can come home." After the call ended, Olivia curled around her still tender abdomen, physically aching for all 3 of her children. One fighting for life in Denver, one struggling to grow in Pine Valley, one forced into premature adulthood by circumstances beyond her control. Morning arrived with grim determination. Luna was prepped for surgery, while Olivia and Marcus tried to memorize every detail of her tiny face, knowing the risks that lay ahead. They signed consent forms with trembling hands, the medical terminology blurring through their tears. "We'll take good care of her," Dr. Martinez promised as the surgical team wheeled Luna away. The waiting room became their purgatory. Minutes stretched to hours as they imagined their daughter's tiny heart stopped and repaired by skilled hands they had to trust. Other parents in the cardiac waiting area offered coffee, shared their own stories, created a community bound by the shared terror of having a child with a broken heart. 4 hours into surgery, a nurse appeared with an update. They've successfully closed the PDA and are working on the VSD now. Luna is stable on bypass. Another hour passed before Dr. Martinez herself appeared, still in surgical scrubs, her mask pulled down to reveal an expression of cautious satisfaction. "We've repaired both defects," she reported. Luna handled the procedure as well as could be expected. She's being moved to recovery now, and we'll keep her heavily sedated for the next 24 to 48 hours to give her body time to adjust. The relief was overwhelming. Olivia sagged against Marcus, who supported her weight easily while his own tears flowed freely. "When can we see her?" he asked. "In about an hour, once she's settled in the cardiac ICU." That was perhaps the longest hour of the day. When they finally entered Luna's room in the CICU, the sight was shocking despite their preparation. Their tiny daughter lay even more encircled by technology than before, new drainage tubes emerging from her chest, specialized monitoring equipment, powerful medications dripping through multiple IV lines. "Her color is better," Marcus observed, finding the positive amidst the overwhelming scene. Indeed, the bluish tinge around Luna's lips had receded, replaced by a healthier pink. The post-surgical vigil began. Olivia and Marcus established a rotation, one always at Luna's bedside, while the other grabbed food or a brief rest. They lived hour by hour, monitoring every small change, celebrating minor improvements, tensing at any setback. 12 hours after surgery, while Marcus slept in the parent room, Olivia sat beside Luna when the monitors suddenly began alarming. Luna's heart rate plummeted as medical staff rushed in, working with urgent efficiency, while Olivia was ushered to the hallway. Her hands pressed against the glass as she watched them fight to stabilize her daughter. Dr. Martinez arrived within minutes, examining Luna and consulting with the CICU team. After what seemed an eternity, she emerged to speak with Olivia. Luna had experienced a postoperative complication called junctional ectopic tachycardia, essentially an abnormal heart rhythm. It's not uncommon after this type of surgery, but it's serious. We've adjusted her medications, and she's stabilizing now. "Will it happen again?" Olivia asked, her voice barely audible. "It might. The next 24 hours are critical." Dr. Martinez's honesty was both terrifying and comforting. "I'm staying in the hospital tonight to monitor her closely." When Marcus returned and learned what had happened, the former rescue specialist's training took over. He began keeping detailed notes of every medication, every vital sign, as if documenting the data could somehow protect their daughter from further harm. The night passed in intense alertness, but Luna remained stable, her tiny repaired heart finding its new rhythm. By morning, she had survived the most critical, immediate post-operative period. That same morning brought unexpected news from Pine Valley. During Leo's routine head ultrasound, standard procedure for premature infants, Dr. Roberts had discovered a small brain hemorrhage, a not uncommon complication in preemies. "It's grade 1, the mildest form," he explained over the phone. "We're monitoring it closely, but I'm optimistic it will resolve without intervention. I don't want you to panic or feel you need to return immediately." Ruby, who had been present for the ultrasound, got on the line next. "He's okay, Mom." "Really?" He opened his eyes when I was reading to him yesterday, and the nurse said he definitely recognized my voice. Torn between their children's competing needs, Olivia and Marcus made the agonizing decision to remain in Denver with Luna through her critical recovery period, while trusting Leo's care to the Pine Valley team and Ruby's faithful visits. As Luna's third postoperative day dawned, Dr. Martinez arrived with cautiously positive news. "She's exceeding our expectations." Her heart function has improved significantly since the repair, and her lungs are working better with proper circulation. When can we hold her? Olivia asked, aching to cradle her daughter properly for the first time. Possibly tomorrow, if she continues this trajectory. We'll try removing the ventilator today and see how she does breathing on her own. The prospect of this milestone sustained them through another day of waiting and watching. That evening, the respiratory therapist and CICU nurse worked together to carefully remove Luna's breathing tube. Olivia and Marcus held their own breath as their daughter took her first unassisted breaths since her heart surgery. At first, her breathing was rapid and shallow, her tiny chest working hard, but gradually it settled into a more natural rhythm. The monitors showed acceptable oxygen levels, and for the first time, they heard Luna's actual cry weak but unmistakable. "That's the most beautiful sound in the world," Marcus whispered, his voice breaking. The following morning brought the moment they had dreamed of. A CICU nurse carefully transferred Luna from her incubator into Olivia's arms, arranging the monitoring leads and IV lines to allow this precious contact while maintaining necessary support. The weight of her daughter against her chest, so light, barely noticeable except for the profound emotional impact, unleashed something in Olivia. She wept openly, tears falling onto the knit cap covering Luna's dark hair. "Hello, my fighter," she whispered. "I'm your mommy. I've been waiting so long to hold you." As Olivia gently rocked Luna, Dr. Martinez entered with another doctor, a neurologist Olivia hadn't met before. "Mrs. Reynolds, this is Dr. Maria Ramirez. We'd like to discuss something with you and your husband." Olivia tensed instinctively, holding Luna closer. "Is something wrong?" "Not necessarily wrong," Dr. Martinez said carefully. "But we've noticed some inconsistencies in Luna's development that warrant further investigation." Dr. Ramirez explained that genetic testing performed before surgery had revealed something unexpected. "Initially, we were looking for genetic syndromes that might explain Luna's heart defects. What we found instead raises questions about your unusual pregnancy." "The superfetation," Marcus said. "Dr. Thompson's rare diagnosis." Dr. Ramirez nodded thoughtfully. "That was the working theory, but the genetic results show something different. Luna and Leo are actually identical twins." The statement hung in the air. "Incomprehensible." "That's impossible," Olivia finally said. "Identical twins develop from a single egg. They're the same age, the same sex. Leo and Luna are different ages. Different sizes. Different sizes, yes," Dr. Ramirez acknowledged. "But genetically identical. We believe what you experienced wasn't superfetation at all, but rather a case of severely discordant twin growth. One twin developing normally while the other's growth was restricted." "How could so many doctors get it wrong?" Marcus asked, his brow furrowed in confusion. "Twin development can be complicated, and without genetic testing, the superfetation theory seemed to fit the ultrasound findings," Dr. Ramirez explained. "But it's worth noting that superfetation is extraordinarily rare, while growth discordance in twins is relatively common." Olivia looked down at Luna, then at Dr. Martinez. "Does this change her treatment, her prognosis?" "Not significantly," Dr. Martinez assured her, "but it may explain why her development seems delayed compared to Leo's beyond. what we'd expect from prematurity alone. And it means we should check Leo carefully for subtle cardiac issues that might not have been apparent initially. As the doctors left, Olivia and Marcus sat in stunned silence, Luna still cradled against Olivia's chest. Not a miraculous case of conception upon conception, but twins from the start, one thriving, one struggling to grow in the shared womb. Dr. Thompson was wrong, Marcus finally said, a hint of vindication in his voice. His rare medical phenomenon was just a misdiagnosis. All those articles, all that attention, Olivia murmured, stroking Luna's cheek with one finger. All wrong. And as this truth settled over them, another realization dawned. The hospital in Pine Valley had missed a twin entirely in early ultrasounds, had failed to identify growth discordance that might have led to earlier intervention, had allowed an ambitious specialist to promote a sensational diagnosis without proper verification. The story that had made headlines wasn't a medical miracle after all. It was a medical mistake. The revelation about the twins' identical genetic makeup rippled outward like sound, waves through a concert hall. Dr. Roberts in Pine Valley ordered additional cardiac screening for Leo, which revealed a minor septal defect too small to cause symptoms, but confirming the genetic link with his sister. Meanwhile, in Denver, Luna continued her remarkable recovery, graduating from intensive care to the step-down unit within 10 days of her surgery. Olivia divided herself between FaceTime calls with Ruby and Leo in Pine Valley, and the physical care of Luna in Denver. Marcus handled the practical matters, discussions with insurance representatives, consultations with medical teams in both cities, and arrangements for Leo's eventual transfer to Denver once he was strong enough to travel. The hospital administrator wants to meet with us, Marcus told Olivia one evening as they sat in the family lounge. Luna finally sleeping peacefully after a challenging day of weaning from pain medication. Patricia Thompson from Pine Valley. She's flying out tomorrow. Olivia looked up sharply from the breast pump she was using to maintain milk supply for both babies. Why? What does she want? She didn't say specifically. Something about addressing our concerns about care. The meeting took place in a conference room at Children's Hospital the following afternoon. Patricia Thompson, Pine Valley Community Hospital's administrator for 15 years, had the polished appearance and careful speech of someone accustomed to navigating difficult conversations. First, let me say how pleased we are that both your children are recovering well, she began, hands clasped on the table before her. I've been following their progress through Dr. Morrison and Dr. Roberts. Thank you, Olivia replied cautiously. But I'm guessing you didn't fly to Denver just to tell us that. Thompson's professional smile faltered slightly. No, I'm here because we've become aware of some concerns regarding your prenatal care and diagnostics at our facility. You mean the fact that your equipment missed a twin entirely in early ultrasounds? Marcus's voice was calm, but carried an undercurrent of steel. Or that Dr. Thompson was allowed to promote a sensationalized diagnosis without proper verification. Both those issues and others, Thompson acknowledged. We've conducted an internal review of your case. What followed was a carefully worded explanation that nonetheless revealed a disturbing pattern of errors. The ultrasound equipment in Pine Valley's maternal care department had been flagged for maintenance 3 months before Olivia's pregnancy, but never serviced due to budget constraints. The technician who performed her early scans had received inadequate training on identifying twin pregnancies with positioning complications. Dr. Thompson, eager to document a rare case of superfetation, had discouraged alternative explanations and rushed to publication before genetic testing was complete. "We failed you," Thompson concluded, "and we failed your children." Olivia sat in stunned silence, processing the magnitude of these revelations. Had Leo and Luna been correctly identified as twins from the beginning, with one showing signs of growth restriction, the medical approach would have been entirely different. Earlier interventions might have been possible. Luna's heart condition might have been detected sooner. "Who else?" Marcus asked suddenly. "I'm sorry," Thompson looked confused. "Who else has been affected by faulty equipment, inadequate training, or doctors more concerned with publications than patients? How many other families?" Thompson's discomfort was visible now. "We're conducting a comprehensive review of all obstetrical ultrasounds performed in the past year. And Dr. Thompson," Olivia found her voice at last, "what consequences will he face for using our case as his claim to fame without proper verification?" "That's a more complex issue involving his privileges at our hospital versus his primary position at Mass General. I assure you it's being addressed." The meeting ended with apologies that felt simultaneously sincere and insufficient. As Thompson left, she placed a business card on the table. "Our legal department would like to discuss a resolution with you when you're ready." Alone again, Olivia and Marcus sat in silence until a text from Ruby, a photo of Leo sucking vigorously on a pacifier, captioned "Hungry Boy," pulled them back to the present reality of their children's needs. "We'll deal with the hospital later," Marcus said, his hand covering Olivia's. "Right now, let's focus on getting our family together." That opportunity came sooner than expected. Leo, having reached 4 pounds and maintaining his temperature without an incubator, was deemed stable enough for transfer. 3 weeks after their birth, a medical transport team flew him from Pine Valley to Denver, with Ruby accompanying him on the flight. The reunion in Luna's hospital room brought the first real joy since the twins' birth. Ruby entered first, having gone ahead while the transport team settled Leo in the neonatal unit. "Mom," she rushed into Olivia's arms, suddenly a child again despite the maturity she'd shown in recent weeks. "I missed you so much." Over Ruby's shoulder, Olivia met Marcus's gaze, saw her own guilt reflected there. Guilt for the separation, for the burdens placed on their teenager, for the family fractured by medical crisis. "You've been amazing," Olivia whispered into her daughter's hair. "The best big sister Leo and Luna could ask for." Ruby pulled back, wiping tears with the back of her hand. "Can I see her now?" They gathered around Luna's crib, no longer an intimidating medical incubator, but a standard hospital crib, though still equipped with monitoring leads. At 5 weeks gestationally and 3 weeks chronologically, she remained tiny, but had gained remarkable strength since her surgery. Her eyes, dark blue like her brother's, tracked movement and fixed on faces with growing awareness. "She looks like Leo," Ruby observed, gently stroking her sister's cheek. "But smaller. They're identical twins," Marcus explained. "Same genes, just different growth patterns." So not the super rare thing Dr. Thompson thought. Ruby asked, surprisingly well informed. Olivia shook her head. No, just twins where one had trouble growing. Later that afternoon, a nurse wheeled Leo's bassinet into Luna's room for the twins' first reunion since birth. The staff had arranged a special visit, bending protocols to allow the family this crucial moment together. Olivia and Marcus watched with wonder as the twins were placed side by side in Luna's crib, careful not to tangle monitoring wires. Though Leo outweighed his sister by nearly 2 pounds now, their identical features were unmistakable. The same dark hair, the same shaped eyes, the same perfect miniature fingernails. "Look," Ruby whispered, as Leo's hand moved seemingly randomly until it came to rest against Luna's arm. The babies remained that way, touching, connected as they had been in the womb before separation and struggle. The hospital photographer captured the moment, 4 Reynolds surrounding the crib, Ruby's hand protectively on the rail, Marcus's arm around Olivia's waist, Olivia's tears falling unchecked. And at the center, 2 tiny fighters finding each other again. The path forward began to clear in the weeks that followed. Luna continued her remarkable recovery, improving enough to join Leo in the step-down neonatal unit, rather than requiring cardiac-specific care. Leo maintained his steady progress, growing stronger daily. The Denver medical team developed a comprehensive care plan that would transition with them to a hospital closer to Pine Valley once they were discharged, allowing the family to settle closer to home without sacrificing specialized follow-up care. 65 days after their dramatic birth, Leo Reynolds was deemed ready for discharge. His sister would need another week of hospitalization, but the end was finally in sight. As Olivia completed the paperwork for Leo's release, a familiar voice spoke from the doorway of the family consultation room. "Mrs. Reynolds, do you have a moment?" Dr. Alexander Thompson stood there, looking considerably less polished than during their previous encounters. He entered at Olivia's cautious nod, taking a seat across from her. "I've just come from meeting with the ethics board at Mass General," he said without preamble. "My faculty appointment has been placed on probationary status pending review." Olivia set down her pen. "I'm sorry to hear that," she said, surprised to find she meant it despite everything. "Don't be. It's deserved." He met her eyes directly. "I came to apologize. I let ambition cloud my judgment. I saw what I wanted to see in your case rather than considering all possibilities, and I published conclusions prematurely." The admission, unexpected and unforced, softened something in Olivia's heart. "You're not the only one who made mistakes. The whole system failed you perhaps, but I bear particular responsibility as the specialist who should have known better." He hesitated. "How are they?" "Your twins, getting stronger every day. Leo's coming home today. Luna should follow next week. That's wonderful news." He seemed genuinely pleased. "The cardiac team here is exceptional. Luna couldn't have been in better hands." After Thompson left, Olivia sat for a long moment, processing the encounter. The anger she'd carried at Thompson, at the hospital, at the circumstances that had endangered her children hadn't disappeared, but it had transformed into something different, a determination to prevent similar situations for other families, perhaps. Marcus found her still sitting there, lost in thought. "Everything okay? The discharge papers are all set." Olivia looked up at her husband, exhausted, steadfast, changed by these past months as profoundly as she had been. I've been thinking about what happens next. Not just bringing the babies home, but after. What do you mean? The hospital issues, the misdiagnosis, the faulty equipment, other families could be at risk. She drew a deep breath. I want to do something about it. An understanding dawned in Marcus's eyes. You're thinking about legal action. Not just for compensation, though God knows we'll need help with the medical bills, but for accountability, for systemic change. Her voice strengthened with conviction. No family should go through what we did because of equipment that should have been replaced or doctors rushing to publication. Marcus nodded slowly. I think you're right, but let's bring our son home first. One milestone at a time. Bringing Leo home to the modest cabin in Pine Valley, now equipped with a nursery containing 2 cribs thanks to friends and colleagues who had prepared it during the family's absence, marked the beginning of their new normal. Ruby proudly demonstrated her practiced skill in changing preemie diapers and preparing the special formula that supplemented Olivia's breast milk. Marcus installed a hospital-grade monitor beside Leo's crib, though doctors had assured them it wasn't strictly necessary. Just for peace of mind, he said, when Olivia raised an eyebrow at the professional equipment. Until we're used to having him home. 1 week later, Luna joined her brother, completing their family at last. Though still smaller than Leo and requiring medication for her heart, she had surpassed all expectations for recovery. The cardiology team was cautiously optimistic that she would need no further surgeries as she grew. The first night with both twins home, Olivia stood in the nursery doorway well past midnight, watching the gentle rise and fall of 2 tiny chests. Marcus found her there and wordlessly wrapped his arms around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. I keep thinking I'll wake up and they'll be gone, Olivia whispered. That all of this was a dream. Not a dream, Marcus murmured. A nightmare at times maybe, but we made it through, did we? Sometimes I feel like we're still in the middle of it. We're past the worst, he assured her. Though I suspect parenting twins will bring plenty of new challenges we haven't even imagined yet. That prediction proved accurate in the months that followed. The twins' different developmental trajectories meant Leo reached milestones weeks before his sister. Though Luna demonstrated remarkable determination in her efforts to catch up. Doctor appointments consumed their calendar, cardiology follow-ups for Luna, developmental assessments for both, physical therapy to address Leo's slight muscle weakness on his left side, a lingering effect of his brain hemorrhage. Through it all, Ruby remained their unexpected rock, developing a special bond with the twins that amazed everyone who witnessed it. The teenager who had initially rejected the pregnancy now moved through their home with quiet confidence, singing to Luna during midnight feedings, or reading storybooks to Leo in different voices for each character. On a crisp October morning, exactly 1 year after the twins' birth, the Reynolds family gathered in their backyard around a picnic table decorated with balloons and a banner reading, "Happy First Birthday, Leo and Luna." The guests included Dr. Morrison, whose steady care had guided them through the pregnancy, Dr. Roberts, who had overseen Leo's early weeks, and even Dr. Martinez, who had flown in from Denver specifically for the celebration. The twins sat in matching high chairs, Leo sturdy and active, Luna smaller, but equally engaged with the world around her. Both wore birthday crowns fashioned by Ruby, who hovered nearby with her sketchbook, documenting every moment. As Olivia carried out a small cake, one candle in the center representing the shared milestone, she paused to take in the scene. Her family whole and healing, her children defying medical odds through strength she'd never imagined possible. The journey begun in fear and continued through grief had arrived at joy. The previous week had brought news from their attorney that Pine Valley Community Hospital had agreed to a settlement that would cover the twins' medical expenses and establish a fund for their future care needs. More importantly, the hospital had implemented new equipment maintenance protocols and revised their training requirements for ultrasonography. Dr. Thompson, reinstated after his probationary period, had published a retraction of his original paper and a new case study accurately documenting the twins' identical status and growth discordance. Olivia had also received an unexpected letter from a mother in Utah, whose twins had been correctly diagnosed following the new protocols. Twins who might have faced the same dangerous journey as Leo and Luna under the previous system. As the family gathered around the birthday cake, Olivia met Marcus's eyes across the table. So much had changed since that first ultrasound, when she'd feared history repeating itself. They had faced that fear and emerged transformed. Their family bonds tested, but ultimately strengthened by the crucible of near tragedy. "Make a wish," she told the twins, though they were far too young to understand. Ruby leaned down between the high chairs. "I'll help them," she offered, gently guiding each baby's hand toward the candle together. The 3 Reynolds children extinguished the small flame, sending a tendril of smoke spiraling upward into the clear autumn sky. A visible reminder of wishes made, prayers answered, and the invisible ties that bound them all together through whatever challenges still lay ahead. Life's most profound miracles often come wrapped in our deepest fears. When Olivia Reynolds discovered she was pregnant at 36 after years of heartbreak, she never imagined the journey ahead. Twin babies with different growth rates, misdiagnosed by modern medicine, fighting separate battles for survival. This story speaks to everyone who's faced impossible choices. Which child needs you more when both are struggling? How do you find strength when your world is split between hospital rooms in different cities? Where do you place blame when the system fails those most vulnerable? Olivia and Marcus's journey reminds us that families aren't defined by perfect circumstances, but forged in life's crucible moments. Their teenage daughter Ruby, initially resistant to new siblings, became their unexpected hero. Little Leo and Luna, separated by medical necessity, but connected by identical DNA, found their way back to each other against overwhelming odds. When you face your own impossible chapter, whether caring for aging parents, supporting adult children through crisis, or navigating health challenges, remember the Reynolds. Their story isn't just about medical miracles. It's about the extraordinary resilience hidden within ordinary people, the healing power of accountability, and how love persists even when everything else feels broken. Thank you for spending this time with Brad Arrows. We hope the stories whispered through the rain carried you far into your imagination or your dreams. If you're still awake, let us know how you liked the journey. Until next time, stay safe, sleep well, and let the darkness comfort you.